Someone was asking, am I here? I am here.
Yeah, I just my name is Labe Gershon. Remember we spoke on Facebook, and I just came here to ask some questions.
Lemas Mitchell.
Yes.
Uh, is this Lemas Mitchell? Same guy?
Yep, I'm the one.
Okay. Yeah, that's why we're here, I believe.
I'm not so good with this equipment, so thanks for giving me the time to answer these questions. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay, and I did some work because I wrote the questions last week, and I tried to sequence them, but it was like I just couldn't come up with a good a sequence. So I just asked them as they came to me. Can I do that?
All right. Do you have a topic? Or they
I
just
do.
Okay.
It's a topic. It's specifically about like this the vocalization system and like the alphabet that you use, because I noticed that you guys use like Paleo Hebrew.
Okay.
And something keeps beeping in the background. Is that something wrong with my phone, or what's happening?
It's every time someone comes into the room, I can turn it off. Hold on a second. It's just a notification that someone entered the room.
Okay, so I'll be brief. Okay, so I was thinking about it because I listened to some of your videos. All right, I listened to probably like 4 of them at least one time, and I think I listened to one of them 2 times. Okay, and so it's a lot of information there, and so I think you use the word gabare. Is that how you say?
Ghabare.
Gabare. Okay, gabare. All right, and so actually that's one of the questions, but let me put that to the second one. So you got exactly like 22 letters in this abjad. Okay, and it's supposed to be like a one-to-one relationship with the Assyrian script. So I guess my first question is, if these 2 alphabets are like one-to-one, where like for every element of one set is one of the other, then what information can you convey using the one write-up system as opposed to the other? I mean, what cannot be done in Assyrian script that is done in the Gabare?
Nothing. The scripts are basically coding the same information.
Okay, that's the first question. So let me check that off. All right. Then the second is, I was looking at one of the presentations here, and I like wrote it down. And at 7 minutes and 4 seconds, you gave the model. You said is divined for pure vowels versus degraded vowels. And so I tried to look that up in some of my like phonology books here, and I can't find the concept of like degraded vowels. Do you mean like reduced,
All right.
lengthened, shifted? Is that what you mean?
No, I'm talking about vowels that can be derived from another vowel or from a diphthong. It's a terminology that's used in the older. It's not so much used in the more recent literature, but it's a term used in the more older literature. So when you talk about a pure vowel, all that means is a vowel that does not glide into another vowel, doesn't change. It stays a monophthong throughout from start to
Monophthong.
finish. Yeah.
Okay, so you using the word monophthong for pure and like diphthong for degraded.
Right. Right.
Okay. All right, and then let's see. The third question is, let's see here. It's about like the time of the changeover from Paleo Hebrew to Assyrian. Now, it's like an opinion about when that was done in this way, but I guess are you saying that this changeover happened all at once? When are you dating this to having happened?
No, I never said it happened all at once. I said it gradually happened after the Babylonian exile. The Assyrian script, the so-called square script, was actually invented by the Assyrians. That's why it's called the Assyrian script. It was invented by the Assyrians to write Aramaic. So
Okay.
that's how that script came about. It was invented by the Assyrians to write Aramaic, but it can be used to write any language. It can be used to write Hebrew. It can be used to write, Aramaic, and it can be used. You can use it to write English. So it's not the script. We don't really tell someone that if you don't use this script, we don't say that. We're just saying that this is the script that's attested on the artifacts from the pre-exile period, and gradually that changed after the exile. So where you saw the more and more usage of it really didn't become predominant until the Herodian period, where the Syrian script had finally eclipsed the old Paleo script. In the Herodian period, that's when we see it become really, really, the Dead Sea Scrolls. A lot of documents are written in the square script from that
Okay, so
point on.
I think we're on the same page. we're on the same page in that way. And then a subset of that question is, okay, I was looking at the some of the because you wrote and published a I don't know how do you call it, a chumash. That's what I would call it. And so the question is, matrix lectionists. Okay, I went and looked at like some different sources, and I noticed that like the use of matrix lectionists in the book the chumash that you wrote, it's like sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not, but it doesn't match up with like the Hebrew Bible. So are you pulling from a different source, one that like removed the matrix lectionist, or did you take those out yourself?
No, the modern or the scholarly understanding of is that a lot of words in the scripture will be written defective, or they will be written plene, which means they will be written fully with the matras lectionis, which simply means mothers of writing,
Mothers of reading,
mothers of
imot.
writing. Yeah. So there's a lot of times in the scripture where we'll see words that they will say, or scholars will say, this is written defectively because it doesn't have the vowel letter in it. And our take on that is that, well, that's probably most likely because of a copying error, not because it was originally right. It was originally that way in the manuscripts, because matrix lectionis is attested on the earliest Hebrew inscriptions, so it was always there. It was never, some folks like to say it was some development that happened later on, that the vowels were put in there later, like the Torah, the earliest biblical text didn't have it, but that's contradicted by the archaeological evidence. It was always there. So
Okay, and that's what I that's what I find.
when I wrote mine, I simply put them back where they weren't, where they're not there.
Okay. And that's what I found too, because I took the trouble to look at like a Samaritan version of the Torah, because I happen to have a copy of that here. And even if you look at the way they wrote it with the full spelling, the Kitiv Mal, I
Mm-hmm.
guess you call it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and let's see here. So then that brings up, I guess, the next question, which is, I have like some vocalizations or some recordings of like the Samaritan Torah reading, because what I'm noticing is, I tried to understand this vocalization system that was developed, and it seems like it's like really heavy on the use of the A class vowels, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if I wanted like an even older source, because the Samaritans have been around for a long time, and if I listen to like their readings, it's a very different thing. It's they had like three like AIU, they got like three long, three short about like what they do in Arabic. And then also, if I look at different vocalizations like Taimani, like Babylonian, that people even still use today, they don't sound like that, but they do sound closer to the Samaritans. It's some differences because they were before the Tiberian vocalization, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the question, you know, what source do you have to like how can you defend the fact that you use like almost like 85% A class vowels? And then if I look at all of these others, even people that are not considered Jews anymore, they're closer to each other than these A class vowel vocalizations.
I would say that it's true that we use 85%. I mean, we have four vowels.
Mhm.
Um, and so there's, I wouldn't say it's 85%. But the reason our system has the sound the way it does is because we're looking at the ancient transliterations of the language into other languages. We're looking at the way Semitic words are transcribed in Akkadian. We're looking at the way they're transcribed in Egyptian. We're looking at the way they're transcribed in uh, uh, Aramaic. So the biblical words will appear in ancient writing systems, and sometimes these writing systems are very good at coding the sound or giving you a sense of what the word was pronounced. That's what we're using. We're not going off of any attested Hebrew that's spoken by a different community, because that would be after. That would be way, way, way late. And we're trying to go back into the Bronze Age. We're not trying to go back into the medieval period, because that's when you find these differences. It wasn't until, like you said, the Masoretes invented the standard pronunciation that became accepted across the board. But before that, all different Jewish communities had different ways of pronouncing the language. There was no standardized form until the Masoretes developed the Nakud system. So it would be late.
Well, It's true, but the Temanim, okay, because I studied some of that stuff, and they're actually during the First Temple period, so that's like almost 1,000 years before the Masoretic system, and it's it's some differences. Like the Segol comes out like a Hamatz or something like that. So instead of Moshe, it's Moshe. But
Well,
it,
we definitely did look at the Temanite. I certainly couldn't exclude that. And one of the things that we do take from that is the va phoneme,
mm,
which I just pronounce it va for you, but for them
well,
it's
well,
never.
I know it sounds like a W. It's like
Yeah,
why
yeah.
yeah.
So we took that from them, but we know it also Taimani Hebrew is heavily influenced by Arabic. But that part, the way they pronounce that, uh, the sixth letter, is consistent with the ancient transcriptions. So we took
That's
that.
true.
We took that.
By the way, I lay in 3 times a week, so I do use that vocalization. I use it instead of like a v, it comes up more like a w sound
Yeah.
because that's what Temanim use and because other reasons. But okay. And so then the next question is, I'm looking at the Paleo Hebrew script here, and I'm looking at like some things here, and what it makes me believe is that it went through 4 stages. Okay, and so what I think I understand is Gazer calendar, Siloam tunnel, Silver scroll, seals and bulla, and they're talking about the usage of it is between I guess like 1050 before the Common Era all the way up to like 458 before the Common Era. And of those 4 stages that I mentioned, they seem to last for like one of them lasts for 225 years. They last for like on average, like say 175 years. I think I wrote down something the wrong way. So of these 4 stages, because different sources say it's different stages, in which stage do you locate your use your the script that you use? Because it seems like it's a lot of different ones.
The script that we use is the one that's attested on the Hebrew bulle and seals. So
So
these would
Seals
be
and Bullock.
yeah, this would be called it would, I guess the modern term for it would be the royal or the Hebrew seals. It's a font that you can get online, but that's the one we use because that's the one that's most attested on the artifacts. The Gezer calendar, I know you mentioned that, but that's not Hebrew. That's Canaanite, and
Mm-hmm.
that's using a modified version of the Paleo Hebrew script. It's not the same script, so it's even
Okay.
before that. It's even before that, older than that.
All right, and one other question, because it's thought to be that some of these that the Hebrew alphabet, like even the Assyrian script, and therefore by extension the Paleo Hebrew script is reduced. So like sometimes like the ayin, it's like 2 versions of that. One of them is more like ah, and the other is like ah, and they still maintain that separation in Arabic. So
Yeah, Arabic still, we again we looked at Arabic, but the older we go back and we look at the so-called oldest, or one of the oldest attested West Semitic languages, it's Ugaritic, and each phoneme has one value. So that happened later on when more than one, grapheme took on more than one value. So the ayin that you're referring to, where now in modern Hebrew doesn't even have a consonantal value, it's strictly a vowel. In Arabic, it's still preserved as a consonant, and sometimes it's just 2 different types of consonants. So that lets
yeah,
us
because
know
it's two
that
different letters.
yeah, well, uh, if you look at just the eye in itself, um, why is it treated like an aleph today in modern Hebrew? Why is it treated like a pure vowel? When we go back to the earliest inscription, it was always a guttural consonant in the first position. It's always a guttural consonant. So when we say, I can use the term velar fricative, I can use the term pharyngeal fricative. Those 2 terms are basically, to the ear of an English person, they're the same. They don't really have that much distinction between the sound is still starting from the back of the throat, like you're gargling water. And that's the sound that you hear when someone from Palestine, Gaza,
Raza instead of Gaza.
yeah, it's
And it's Gaza. Yeah,
yeah. So that's where
it's
it
true.
comes.
We do have one guy around here, by the way, and for some reason he does vocalize the ion as a pharyngeal fricative, but then like he merges the samic sin and tav all into one letter. I don't know what he could be thinking, but I try to like use the ion to make it a pharyngeal sound. But okay, then the next question, thank you, by the way, it's rolling quite right along.
Mhm.
Is they have like this concept of like mishkalim, and most people don't know it. Certainly not around here. And so I guess, is the vocalization system that you use, is it blind to the existence of mishkalim, or how do you deal with those?
It's late for us. It's not something we need to really, for us, it's not something we need to consider. Because again, like I said, we're trying to capture the phonetics of the language before it, succumb to all these other outside influences and, post-biblical times. So it's not an issue for us.
Okay.
That's where a lot of folks, they think that we're taking something that's existing and, um, breaking all the rules. We don't, I speak modern Hebrew. I know how that language heard. I know how that language sounds, but it's not the same if you go back, into the 10th century and before that.
Mhm. Okay. So now just make sure we're still on the same page with this here. So, because what I thought what I thought Mish Kalim were in like the books that I read is if you have nouns and you want to do declensions, then they have a system that's not quite as tight as the same type of declension for verbs. And I think those are called binyanim. So like if you wanted to say like the Kal version of like Kuf Dalit Shin, okay,
Mhm.
Kadash. Okay, but then if it was like the Pual version, it'd be Kudash and so on and so on. So I'm
Mhm.
saying that Mishkalim are the noun analog of the verbal binyanim.
Yeah,
Is that, are we on the same page with that?
yeah. I'm just saying that it's late.
It's
That
late, okay?
yeah, it's very late. For us, like I said, every grapheme has to have one value, and we only pronounce a vowel if it's written. It has to be written.
Mm,
The only inherent vowel that can't be written is the A class vowel. That's the way we look at it. So if the vowel letter is not written and you have to assume an inherent vowel, then that vowel must be an A class vowel. It can be a long A, short A, but it can't be any other vowel other than A. When the vowel is written, then we say that vowel, we pronounce that vowel. If it's not, then we assume an A class vowel. That's when you look at, like I said, the ancient transcriptional evidence. That's what we see. We don't see them inventing or you know changing the vowel into a new or adding a vowel that's not there. So
okay. So then I guess the next question is, since this is like stapling onto that, because how do you deal with, like, are you saying that like the binyanim are like what do you call it, a later invention, even those?
the Binyanim is, I mean, again, this is that whole system of explaining the language in that grammatical fashion is a borrower. It's being borrowed from the Arabs, from the Arab grammarians. Those
Binyamin
were,
has been borrowed from the Arabs. Okay,
yeah,
let me
the
write
Binyamin.
this down.
If you're talking about Cal, Nif Al, PL, Ku Al, those terms, I mean, they're not exactly pronounced the same way. But the seven Binyanim is a structure that was borrowed from the Arab grammarians. So
Mm,
we don't not use them. We obviously know there is a basic stem, there is a passive stem, there is an intensive stem. We know there's different stem verb stems, but you don't have to. You do not have to assume vowels unless they're written. What you can do is simply take an a vowel and put stress on it. So we have distinctions for all those stems, but not we don't have to add these extraneous vowels.
okay, so if you were like just the kuf dalet shit, if in the system that you use, if you were distinguishing between like simple active and simple passive, like qal and nifal, how would that sound?
Well, in
Like say third
simple
person.
active, you just have kadash. If it's simple passive, you have a noon prefix to that, don't you?
Okay, it would be nikdash as I know it.
All right. Well, we don't have to say. See, that's what I'm saying. You just put a vowel in between the na in the first radical root.
Mm.
Is there one written there?
Um, I think as an abjad, then you're supposed to supply the vowels.
No, 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 no. Well, I'm going to supply the vowel because it has to be. You have to make a syllable with a vowel. But what vowel
Mm.
did you just put in there when you said
Chirik.
you put a heroic vowel in there,
Mm.
right?
Yes.
Okay. We don't have to do that.
Hmm.
We simply just, it's an A class vowel for us, not Kadash.
Okay, so then go down one, and let's say that you were doing like PL because you don't have to add the prefix nun for something like that. It's the same three letters. Now, as I see it, I would say like Kidesh. That it would be something like that, or
The, what
Kadesh.
what makes the so-called PL distinctive is not a vowel. I know that's, again, that's coming from the, borrowing from the Arab. What makes it distinctive is the emphasis you put on the second radical of the root.
Mm.
So we don't have to, again, we don't have to add a vowel. We simply make the second radical of the root a longer, louder sound, right? Or if it's a sonnet, we simply sing that let we can drag that letter out and stress it out. We don't have to add a vowel there. We can just simply make that distinction with the second radical of the root.
Okay, well, I understand what you said, but I don't quite. So, I mean, how would you pronounce it if it was like PL? How would you do that?
For Kadash,
Yeah, for Kuf Dalit Shin.
okay, Kadash, Kadash, we make that second radical louder.
Okay, and that's consistent. Okay, see, okay, I think I understand.
Yeah.
Uh Okay, and then okay, so now so I think this actually getting to the end, all right, because some of the questions turned out to be redundant. But I was studying some things like where they have languages that have like lower vowel inventories, okay, and it's very few of these. And I know that you said that you had four vowels, that I understood, but what it was suggesting here was that when you have languages with like low vowel inventories, okay, then what you do is you distinguish the vowels by vowel height. So just what you said you would put a stress on the dalet, and then that would let people know that it's meant to be PL. All
Mm-hmm.
right, so I was only able to find a very couple of languages where they have like a really low vowel inventory. So is it something that you do to distinguish the vowels by like say vowel height? That's what they say that they do.
Well, we would call it vowel length. We would do that. We would lengthen the vowel.
Um, okay. See, I'm just looking here in my book because I mean they're saying that like length and height are two different concepts. But vowel inventory, surrounding language families. Okay, so you don't distinct. You say you set in length equal to height.
For example, we have an O class vowel, right? And
Okay.
you can make that short or long. You can lengthen it if you needed to make a distinction. And when you're inflecting something, you can lengthen that vowel to make it a longer O or just a short O.
Okay. Well, I looked through your stuff and it was so much of it. Do you have like anything that you could like send me a link to that shows the like for some simple, strong, healthy root shows through all of the conjugations so I can get an idea what does that look like?
Yeah. You would you be more specific? How about strong verb? How about a strong verb?
I'm
I
saying
can give
any
you.
type of strong shorish, like kuf
All right.
dalichin, it could be that one.
All right. Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Okay, and let me just make sure. I think that answers all the questions. You said Akkadian, your sister languages, vowel inventory. Okay, and so then the other questions, okay, which so that answered all those, and I don't know how do you send it over to where I can get the
Just there's a chat box in here. If you want, if you want to drop your email on there, I can shoot it over to you. I'll whip it up right now, and send it to your email. It's up to you.
hold on, I'm trying to figure out how to trying to get here. Chat box. All right. I don't see where is the
It's on the far right. It'll be at the probably the bottom far right of your screen. You can type a message in there directly to me, or just if you want everyone to know your email, you can put it to everyone.
let's see. I'm looking over here. It's, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. I cannot I can't figure this out.
Well, I'll
So
give you
hold on, let me
mine.
try.
I'll give you mine,
No, no.
and
Let me get a pen. Hold on just a second.
it's mine.
All right.
Let
So
me
go
see.
ahead. Yeah.
All right, you can
So
shoot me an email, and then I'll have yours to respond back to.
what? Wait a minute. I don't see it. Hold on. Let me go back up here. It's been a long time since I used Zoom. Okay, here we go. see captions, meeting settings,
Chat.
whiteboard.
What about chat? You see a chat down there or
Yeah,
something?
I see it right here.
All right,
Okay, yeah, okay, I got it right here.
cool.
All right, so then hold on. OHDAH@gmail.com. Okay, that's very easy. So let me just get back to like knock out these last few questions because this is going better than I thought. Okay, so then the more philosophical questions. Okay, now you know about the history and how like before the time of the second temple, before the second Churban, I guess you would say that Judaism was like a sacrificial and like a temple based religion, right? And so because of the what do you call it? Because of the circumstances, then it had to be changed from like a hereditary priesthood to like a professional rabbinate. Okay, and it started to be focused on study and prayer. So that's one thing. And then also, if you look in the study of the Talmud, in their mind, it could be that the religion would be changed back to a sacrificial religion. So, it goes through and says, okay, the priest has to do this and he has to do that. Because in their mind, when they codified it and wrote it down, the sacrificial system was in living memory. Okay. So the Israelitism, I'm not exactly sure what you call your practice. What stage are you hearkening back to? Because you're saying, or what stage are you pointing back to? You're saying that, you want to use like the oldest alphabet and, the oldest abjad. So,
Mhm.
I mean, is it meant to be that it's going to turn back into a sacrificial religion and you will have like a hereditary priesthood? Would it be that?
Yeah, we are definitely on track, on goal to revive all the law, not just the parts that, you know, people talk about the most, but the whole law. And no, we don't have a priesthood ready to do that now, but that is the goal. The goal is to revive the whole covenant, the full covenant.
Okay. So it is what I thought. And so as I'm looking at this, okay, they got like this, like the Amadot system where, because you can't have everybody making sacrifices every day, then they, select men from like these 12 districts and then they send them to make sacrifices. So, I mean, is that something that, okay, you're going to revive the Amadot system?
No, we're gonna revive exactly what we see in Flora.
Okay.
It's all gonna be based on the tabernacle. The tabernacle has to be built. That is a commandment. That's a mitzvah, right? You must
Mm-hmm.
build in the house. And we don't believe that means just build a synagogue in different
Mm-hmm.
parts of the world. There should only be one tabernacle based on what the law is saying. That's where the sacrifices will take place. When we get there, I mean, we're nowhere near there, nowhere near that stage. But that is what we have in our for in our sites. That is the goal.
So then how do you choose your Kohen Gadol? Is
Well,
that's a
first,
scriptural thing? That's not.
yeah, it's the same well, almost the same way that we've been able to identify our tribes. We believe the blessings that are pronounced upon each tribe helps us to find out what tribes we belong to. Um, and once we have enough people who can identify it with that tribe, then we'll do the process of elimination to find out which family should the high priest come from. But we're not
Mhm.
we're not there yet.
Okay. And then I guess the third question is like I mentioned before that after the second Churban, then it became a professional rabbinate instead of hereditary priesthood. So it has to be some point past which you would ignore all of the developments in Judaism such as it is today. So, I mean, what is your breaking point? Do you say, okay, we'll ignore everything before the first Churban or before the
We
second
don't
Churban? Huh?
we don't ignore it. I mean, we read it. We read Mishnah, we read Talmud, but we don't. That's not the authority for us. We have to stay informed. Obviously, we don't want to sound ignorant. We have to stay informed, but for us, it's like I said, it's um, before the Mishnah, right? We're
So the
talking,
time before the Mishnah.
yeah. Basically, if we want to give it a specific date, it'd be the period of the kings. That's what we're looking at. That's the goal.
Okay. Well, okay, I think I understand. And so then the things like the temple service and whatnot like that, it
Hmm.
was supposed to be, or what I think I made to understand is that was all written down by accident because it was that people say, okay, I'll teach my son how to do it because it's hereditary. Then if everybody has babies, then it's always somebody that you can train it to. So things like, the incense composition, as such like that. So I mean, I guess you say you read the Talmud. I mean, but even people who study Gemara,
I
they have
don't, I
no
don't,
idea.
I mean, I
But
read it, but I don't, it's just
so
so
it's not
just so
authoritative.
I
It's not
can know what's
authoritative.
in there, just so I can know what's in there, but I don't base any decisions or conclusions off of it.
Well, of
But
course not. I understand. I
yeah,
understand. But I mean, as far as like even like making the incense and stuff like that, I mean, that's not known anywhere. I mean, so if you wanted to make the incense for the sacrifices, do you like, come up with something
the
new or
no, the ingredients are mentioned. I think that the question is, what do these words mean? Um, and we're, diligently deciding what they mean, but the ingredients are there. How to, what ingredients to use to make it. It's all there.
and and the proportions?
Yeah, the portions are there, the ingredients are there. So I mean, it isn't all spelled out. Like I know this is why some folks think you need an oral Talmud, an oral law, because the
Mhm.
law does not go into detail specifically. I don't think it needs to, though. We don't think it really has to. Just like, they say, "Oh, how do you sacrifice? Which way do you do it?" It doesn't tell you you have to have an oral law. Uh, if you're talking about farmers, they know how to slaughter an animal. It doesn't. It shouldn't be something where you need to go to get a PhD. You know, you have basically what you need, and you can figure it out. It doesn't have to be something where you need to go refer to an authority like the Talmud or the Mishnah.
Okay, well, no, I'm not saying you need like a PhD, but if you want to, okay, so you're saying that the exact proportions are something that's not so important. You would just like figure it out on from what makes sense. And I'm saying that if it was some exact proportions, then they've been lost. I mean, that's one of the arguments that I heard against why people, now that it's Jewish people in the land of Israel, they're not interested to try to like rebuild a Talmud because they don't even know all of the things that
Yeah,
are
I mean,
necessary for it to happen.
they also had that argument about you know, the blue thread on the fringe garment. Is it can you make it the correct color blue, or is it purple? That
It's
debate
true.
debate raged on up until very recently. Um, you know, the, Listen, if it were impossible to recover these things, then this book is really up for grabs in terms of what you can do with it, right? Anyone can make this book say whatever they want. This book makes statements that in the future, the people will return to him with their whole heart and keep his law, all of it. So, you know, that tells me that this isn't something that we have to scratch our heads over and rack our brains about. Does it matter if if it's just blue, there's not a tinge of purple in it? Does it really matter? Someone's making it someone's making it seem like it really should matter, but that's not what we read, right? That's not what we find when we actually read the text. It doesn't say that. You know,
Okay, I think I
does
understand.
the blue come from a particular type of seashell creature? I don't think so, because if you believe the Exodus, we didn't come out of there. Uh, People didn't exit that country anywhere near the Mediterranean. So where do they get where do they get these marine life creatures from to make the dye? Probably more or less the same way the Egyptians made it, which was minerals or roots from tree or plants. So it would be really blue. I mean, these are things you can look at historically and figure out. It's not like, okay, do we have to really go find some seashell creatures and extract this blue dye, which is more or less purple anyway? Um, I think I think that argument was always kind of silly, that the rabbi said, "Oh, we can't make it no more because we don't know which shell it was, and why do you need that?" Maybe when the people entered the land and now it became, we've settled in the land, they got it from the sea, but it couldn't have been that's where they got it from. when they were in the wilderness for 40 years.
Okay, so this is a good thought question.
Right.
It sounds like this is like, is this something that you notice, or is this something that's like contextual criticism? Because I was actually looking for a couple of books to read that dealt with that, and it's one that's like really expensive, and I'm wondering if there's others that are a little bit more affordable. Is that a
I
textual
don't know.
criticism argument?
I don't know of a text that talks about that specifically. I just know there's commentaries and discussion about it that I've seen over the years. Um, and for my own just research into history, that's all I know. I don't think there's a textbook that deals with that specifically, that one topic.
Okay, and so it's a book that I just read like last year because I think I did 58 books last year, and this book was specifically about the Kaddish. And it took me a long time to finish that book. And so
Mm,
what the author did was he went back and retraced the origins of Kaddish from like one verse in the I think it was in the Nevi'im or maybe even the Ketuvim. I can't remember exactly where it was. That, and then he added some midrashic commentary about Akiva teaching the son of a man,
mm,
so he could like say prayers for. You've heard all of this before.
yes.
Okay, so the point is like the literature, like the midrashic literature, the responsive literature is just like absolutely huge. So it's like if you were trying to like rebuild a type of practice, a lot of it would be like reinventing the wheel. I mean, if it took like say from the time of the closing of the Gemara up until the codification of Mishnah Torah, I think that was like 600-700 years.
Hmm.
Okay, so if you want to say, okay, we don't care about any of that type of codification, we just want to like work with the extant Hebrew scriptures and nothing other than that. If you wanted to, come up with, I guess, I don't know, codification or come up to conclusions where you standardize the service or the practice. Is this something that you expect could take like another 600 years, or is this something you think could be done in a single
No, I mean,
lifetime?
but ask yourself this: when do you
Mhm.
find all this explosion of literature, like the ones you just mentioned? Do we see any of that in the biblical period?
No.
No, we don't. We only see it, like you said, after the destruction of the Second Temple, and the religion of Judaism was born. It became a different, type of practice now, like you said, professional rabbis. But we don't see any of this literature or this codification stuff during the biblical period. And that's what we're trying to relive. We're trying to go back to that. It's very simple. It's not that complicated. Uh, our literature is not that extensive, you know, and so
Okay.
we don't have to try to recreate that wheel. We're not trying to start from scratch and get to where the Jews are today, or
Mhm.
where Judaism is today.
It, okay, that's a good point. It's a subtle point. But if you think about it and you take it away from the topic of Judaism for a second, what you notice is if you have some people somewhere and they want to like push this point or preserve this point, then what they need is people who are scholars and men of words in order to push that position. So you could say like Samaritans, it's like what 700 of them left in the world, and in their mind they really do have something that was closer to the period of the kings, but they don't have like scholars to make it real, and so it's very few of them. But then you look at like Judaism, and they lived through all of these pogroms and all these bad times in Europe, and they came out of that intact because they had people whose job it was to like defend this and to legitimize it. And I
Mhm,
could also give you another example of like, because I'm married to like a Han Chinese lady, right?
mhm,
And the Chinese state was like stable for like thousands of years because they had scholar officials, because it was their job to legitimize this brutal state. And so nobody was ever able to like colonize China for a long enough time to where they erased the Chinese identity. So what I'm asking if it has to do with this is, you know, wouldn't is it you don't see it as useful if you have like scholars and men of words in order to like legitimize this? Do you think that it would be enough for like professional clergy to do just based on the plain Hebrew scriptures, up to the time of the kings?
well, it started with the Torah, right? All this knowledge and learning that you're talking about, this accumulated with this particular group started with Torah. And so our listen, we're only 7 years old. We're very young. We're not like these camps that have been around for 60 years. And our main thing right now is simply to teach the language so folks can read Torah without a
Mhm.
translation. And then when they become scholars of that, when they become masters of that, then yeah, we can have people, who are so quote unquote scholars and be able to, argue a point to conclusion. We can have all that. But right now, all we're concerned about is taking people who can't read, who've never really have any exposure to this language. All they've had most of their lives is King James, I call it the Queen James Bible. And we're giving them the tools to be able to parse, read, and dissect and uh, put them in direct contact with the Torah. And once they're able to do that, yep, I'm not saying we don't have long ways to go, but that's how we start. Then we'll
Okay.
have we'll
So
have
then, all
scholars
right.
come out. The Torah will produce, it will churn out scholars.
And so then this is very different. This is not what I expected to hear because I'm seeing that you're making like a distinction between yourselves and Hebrew Israelites. You're saying it's two totally different things. And I did listen to the
The only thing we really
YouTube.
have in common is that all of us agree that
Mm.
the people who were brought by the slave ships have the ancestry of the lost tribes. We agree on that. But they mix it with Christianity and you know all
You
that stuff.
think?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't do that. We don't do that.
All right. So then this is better than what I thought. And so, all right, I remember in one of the YouTube videos, you said that you started out in Israel and you lived there. You were like born to a Jewish parent, a mother, I think you said,
Yeah.
right? And what I see happen a lot of times is that you have like black people who are interested in this, or they go there, or they're already born into it, and they have like a really hard time with the local people, for want of a better word. So like it's a guy named Asher Mesa, and he's like an intellectual type person, like what you are. Okay, not quite the same thing, but very like intellectual, a man of words, and so on and so on. And I guess he lived there in Israel for 7 years, and he got so tired of like having his intelligence insulted that he decided he would just go off in his own direction and do his own thing. And so, is that what
Uh,
made you part? Huh?
no, that wasn't my experience. I wasn't born there. I was born in the States, but I
Mm,
grew up in a conservative synagogue.
mm,
So I made Aliyah in 2006, and I'm still a citizen. I had nothing but fond memories of my time in Israel. I still have lots of friends and people there who I respect and I keep in touch with. That was never my experience. So
no.
no, when I was there, I was treated like a king. I did
Mm,
anything I wanted. I have very beloved people there who I love to this day. I came here to the Philippines with Israelis, and some of them are still
okay.
here. So I don't. That was never my experience. I have fond memories of Israel.
Well, then, if that's true, then if you grew up in a conservative synagogue, why such a like change in direction? I mean, if you have people that would accept you, that's been a lot of my problem around here.
No, it wasn't because it wasn't that no one would accept me. It was simply I needed answers. I was thirsting for answers, and they just weren't there. So I thought, okay, let me move to Israel and really go full in, go all in. And I
Mhm.
still didn't get the answers I was looking for. And it wasn't until I came to the Philippines. I had no plan. I just came here on a work assignment from Israel with a bunch of other Israelis. And that's when my course changed after I got here. But no, I still have the rabbi here, the Chabad rabbi here. We are still friends. I still go to his house on Friday evenings or Wednesday evenings, have dinner with his family. We talk. I have good relationships with people from Israel. It was just
Oh,
they didn't have the answers I was seeking, the things I was interested in, and things I wanted answers to. They didn't have them.
okay. Well, I think I understand. So then this is not at all like what I thought it was. So this is like I see somebody that has like an intellectual like man of words temperament, and it's not like with these guys I see on YouTube where they're like bellowing at people on street corners with bull horns.
No, no, I've never stood on a street corner and did that in my life, and I know I will never do that.
Okay. Well, I guess I learned something new today then. There you have it.
Yeah.
Well, then I think that answers all of my questions then.
All right. I'm glad you got what you asked. Your question got answered. And if you have more, you're welcome to come back.
Well,
Up
it's
to
like I
you.
said, it's not meant to be a debate. It was meant to like get questions answered.
Okay. I'm saying if more pop into your head, come on back.
Well, all right then. I just might do that. So thanks a lot for answering my questions.
Okay. Shalom.
All right, be well.
Be well.